Let's talk about the Pancake Balls. You sold over 1 million of them.
3 million.
3 million?
If I ever opened a restaurant, I was going to do a southern version of Neville's Fever, which is basically a Johnny cake. So it put corn flour in that. And that is how the Pancake Ball developed. I launched it on the very first day I opened, and it was immediately popular. I will say that I've never been afraid of hard work. I've always worked very long hours and been very motivated. Whatever I set my mind to, I end up doing.
Every single dish has been killer so far.
But this is really special.
I don't know how else to put it.
Here we go, guys.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Perfect Bite podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Perkins. This is a very special episode of the Perfect Bite because it's our first ever live show. Oh my gosh, yes, we're recording this episode as a restaurant full of guests enjoy an incredible tasting menu by our featured entrepreneur. She's an icon throughout Columbus, known for her Latin and Southern-inspired comfort bites, including her famous Pancake Balls. She's been featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives, and is just getting started with her empire of 3 locations. Please welcome the dining diva herself, owner of Catalina's, Kathleen Day.
Thank you, Sarah. Oh my God, thank you so much.
I can't believe we're here.
I know. It's been a long time coming.
I know. We met this summer. We had some Pancake Balls together. This sweetie just reached out, to the beauty of Instagram. We talked on the DM. And that same day we said, what if we tried this?
And here we are.
And here we are. I can't believe it. So we're really excited for everyone to enjoy this. So for the folks listening in or say watching later, you'll see us taste each course as they're coming out. We'll describe what we're eating, and then we'll have our questions around Catalina's adventures, her journey to food, and where she's come here today. So let's start off with our first course. We have a pozole verde with pepitas, radish, and micro cilantro, and we're having that with the sangria from Middle West Spirits. So let's take a little sip. Okay, this is adorable. We're having a teacup. Thank you.
That's a good tea.
Okay. That is maybe the best thing I've ever had in a teacup.
And thank you.
Look at that. That's tea. But I like drinking it.
Yeah, I like drinking that.
I like that there's a little bit of heat, but not too much. And you've got a little bit of crunch going on with the radish, the pepitas, everything else on top. So it's a perfect starter.
And speaking of tea, it's got espresso in there, which is also known as Mexican tea. There you go.
So creative. So speaking of, I always love to take things back. When did you first fall in love with food? What was food like for you growing up, and what was eating like in your household?
That is a great question. I first fell in love with food when I literally, back in the day, we had these things called magazines. And there was a Sunday edition called Parade Magazine, if any of you guys remember that. And Julia Childs had a column every single week. And I remember being 9 years old and looking forward to that column, and I just thought it was so glamorous. I grew up in Northwest Arkansas, a very cool area of the South, but obviously, not super cosmopolitan. And I just, since I was 9 years old, aspired to go to France and become a cook. Mm-hmm. And my father had a garden in suburban Arkansas, literally the biggest garden you've ever seen that someone could have in the suburbs. So it was this dichotomy growing up in the 80s, because those of you who are old enough to remember, everything was about convenience, frozen, canned, quick. So my mother, who, was juggling 3 kids and doing all the things that we all know women have to do all the time, was a great home cook, but it was all about convenience. So I wasn't always in love with that kind of convenience type of food, but when my father would have shell peas, and I know someone out there remembers this, we talked about that a lot, or those homegrown tomatoes, or those fresh strawberries that I would literally pick off the vine. I didn't know any difference, but looking back, that was so special.
It is so special, and it's something that I think all of us wish we went back to more today, because when you do taste something so fresh and untouched, there's nothing like it.
Nothing like it.
I mean, like all great chefs, you were inspired by the freshest spoon at a young age.
I sure was. And our memories as, as we look back to our childhood are probably a little skewed, but I remember it was Mother's Day and I saw Eggs Benedict in that parade magazine, and I made my mother breakfast in bed. Now, anyone who's made hollandaise sauce knows that that is not a beginner dish. So it was probably horrible. But that is truly the first dish I remember making on my own.
That is so sweet, because at 9 years old, you were figuring out how to make hollandaise, and I think it took me until I was like 19 to try hollandaise.
I'm not sure how big it was.
Now, you had a really interesting career before you actually got into food, and you did fulfill that dream of going to France and learning how to cook. So tell us then, from 9, how we made the jump later on, because you worked with some really iconic brands as well.
Sure. Well, a great segue would be my father was a physician, and he was the director of the Student Health Services at University of Arkansas. And my family was all about education. So a little bit after that Eggs Benedict foray, I drove by the university at about 10 years old, and I told my father and mother I wanted to be a chef and not go to college. My father slams on the brakes, looks back at me, says, I will not have it. This was way before chefs were glamorous, or especially female chefs. But cut to, I went to grad school, so I fulfilled, my dream and his dream of getting an education. But in between undergrad and grad school, I heard that I could actually be an au pair, which is a nanny in France. So before the internet, wrote a letter to an au pair service and became an au pair in the French Alps. Did not like being an au pair, I'll say that. So I hooked it to Paris, saw an ad in a hostel, and it literally said, Countess looking for cook, must not speak French. Because she wanted to learn English.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, so she had a cook, her name was Concepcion, she was from Spain, and I would help her prepare the evening meal every day before she left, and then serve the evening meal.
Oh my goodness. And this sounds like a movie. Truly.
Well, I often say it's like Emily in Paris, except probably the most opposite you can imagine. It was not glamorous at all.
You were getting your tiger stripes though, so you were learning how to cook. What were you picking up over there that you then were able to bring back to the U.S.?
Well, again, growing up in the 80s, it was all about convenience, diet culture. Oh my gosh, diet culture. And I saw all these beautiful women enjoying food and enjoying restaurants. My family never, back then we did not go out to eat. That was a luxury. And not just my family, it just was a luxury back then. Sawing people enjoying food, and the biggest thing was going to the market every day, fresh produce, fresh flowers, fresh bread, not anything convenient per se, but still eating and enjoying food. I had been taught you don't enjoy food, especially if you're a woman.
Yeah. God forbid you eat.
Exactly.
Maybe you shouldn't, actually.
Exactly. It's truly revolutionary to me. It was truly revolutionary.
So you came back, and you didn't start anything in that area right away, though.
No.
But the career you did go to, once people hear it, clearly plays a huge part in today. And you ended up as a creative brand director.
I did. After grad school, I went to Seattle, and I worked at a famous restaurant serving called the Pink Door. And this will be very not timely. I bummed a cigarette from someone at a party, and I found out they were looking for a copywriter at Nordstrom. And I got my first fashion job. I was also very into fashion. And so that led into my career. Long story short, I was recruited to other cities like San Francisco, these great food cities. There was nothing like Seattle in the late 90s. There were no foodie cities in the U.S. And then I went to San Francisco, a few other side trips here and there, including New Orleans, another great food city. And then finally recruited to Columbus to work for Lenny Bryant and then Victoria's Secret as a creative director, a creative copy director.
Huge.
But all along, even in New Orleans, I was pitching people on opening a restaurant.
And in the next course, we're going to hear about how that dream started. So enjoy the rest of your Mazzoli. Oh, this is going to be my bell in between courses. All right, let's get into course number 2. We are going to be eating a jicama, orange and red onion salad with tahini and lime zest. I'm so excited for this.
We actually replaced the oranges with kumquats, one of my favorites. So very similar. And for those of you who don't know, which I'm sure everyone here knows, you eat the skin of the kumquat and the seeds. So
Those so good.
this one I like because it's so colorful. You eat with your eyes first. Yep.
Very seasonal too. So please enjoy. And let's pick up Kathleen's story here.
I would add that the jicama was my father's favorite vegetable, which is so my father. It's not that exciting.
Yes.
Yeah. And then years later, when I met my husband from Istanbul, apparently he loves jicama too, just plain. So I don't know, maybe my father's spirit is somehow still in here.
Well, we can also defer you to and like substitutes and that sort of thing. Those are the best kind of guys that can have a good relationship with your dad.
I did.
And I did too, and I was, poor Tim, I always call him out there. I'm always like the best things in him I've seen.
Exactly.
So we're gonna pick up here. You've gone through this journey, you've had this itch, and you've had this thought in the back of your head that I really do want to do something of my own. What was the real aha moment that you decided to start Catalina's? It's been about 15 years now, correct?
Yes.
Why Columbus? And what's really the inspiration behind the cuisine that we're seeing here?
Well, I was working for Victoria's Secret, and as some of you probably know, you work about 50 to 70 hours a week when you work for those brands. And I thought if I'm going to work this hard, I should work for myself. And also I was not completely happy toward the end. So it was just time to make the leap. And I had been driving by this little spot in Harrison West. I thought it was a coffee shop forever. And this was, again, 15, 16 years ago. And Columbus was more about chain restaurants. Then Cameron Mitchell was a big presence, as he still is, and deservedly so. But I thought there should be something a little more quaint and a little more what I was used to on the West Coast or in Europe. And I just knew this spot was perfect. And then I found out it was for sale. And then my husband and I had a commitment ceremony in New Orleans. And I literally told everyone there, I am going to either be fired when I come back from the wedding, or I'm going to quit and open a restaurant. And everything came together. I quit, opened a restaurant, and it was right at the tail end of the recession, so that wasn't too smart. But a lot of people that I know are successful entrepreneurs because there's so much white space during recessions, because not everyone, has the gumption to do that. I've always been a feet first, jump in kind of girl, and it obviously worked out, but it was scary for sure.
What inspired the menu, the name? I mean, Catalina's itself is a really special place. So if you all have been to the original location over in Harrison West, which Tim and I live around the corner from, actually. So this is all been visit. I mean, it's covered in, customers graffiti and anything they want to write. It feels like you really allowed the community to put its own mark on it too.
Yeah, and the community, especially in Harrison West, supported me so much from the get-go.
When did you get started to be called Katalina? And also, yes, we understand you're from essentially the northern part of the South, but why the South and why the Latin-inspired cuisine too?
Well, when I first opened, I had these grand plans. I wanted, to be a little more fine dining than I am. I didn't really have the brand nailed, which is unlike me because I'm very brand oriented and brand focused. So I did play around a little bit in the beginning, although the Pancake Balls were the first item I put on the menu. But it was in that first couple of years, there's another person here who might remember that I really found my footing. I was so naive about health code, even though I'd worked in restaurants my whole life. I made a Peruvian cork in a crock pot. Social media had just come out, and my cook dropped the crock pot on the floor, and there was a line out the door, and I don't know, John, you might have even been there, but just seeing people's responses to items like that were really unusual, that were more Latin leaning. I've always worked with a lot of, in any kitchen, anywhere, there's always a lot of employees from Latin countries. Then growing up in the South, it just kind of was an organic entry into what is Latin leaning and Southern-slanted.
And I love how you phrase that as well. That is also almost trademarked for you.
I love it. I know.
And Catalina's, were you nicknamed that?
I was nicknamed that, but again, by a lot of the employees. I've worked in restaurants all over the years, from Arkansas to Seattle to Paris. They've always called me Katalina in the kitchen. And a funny story is I couldn't afford a sign when I first opened, so I found those Indian circus letters, and I didn't have the S, I just had the Katalina, and it's just become the brand. So I've been very fortunate that it organically evolved, but I think I really found my footing in about the third year. That's when I revamped the menu a little bit and just really focused on the Latin and Southern-slanted and, the Catalina's brand that it is today.
And why allow the graffiti? Like, are you someone who loves graffiti art? I mean, if you come to now any of the 3 locations, it's all super bright and colorful too.
Well, a lot of Catalina's brand came literally from the fact that when I opened, my budget was so small. So the chalkboard, you see chalkboard menus everywhere now. That was literally all I could do was handwrite the chalkboard. And so the tables were so beat up, everything was used, and now my flea market finds are kind of what I'm known for. The tables were so beat up, I took a chalk pen and just wrote something like, Catalina's is cool, and it went from there, and now you see literally graffiti on the toilet. It's crazy.
It's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Well, when we come back for our 3rd course, which is a Fangay, we're going to talk about the pancake ball and how it evolved from there.
A squash blossom Fangay there.
I cannot believe.
And this actually, I just tasted it back there. This is probably my favorite course. It turned out really well. So
Okay, she's already put her opinion on the perfect bite history. We're also going to take a poll at the end of the night and see what everyone's perfect bite was. We are so excited about course number 3. Again, this is Kathleen's favorite bite, but we've got, this is really special. I mean, look at your place as well. It's art. We have a squash blossom beignet with chimichurri. So let's get a little bite here. Look at this cutie.
So the is obviously inspired by my time in New Orleans, but squash blossom is always used in Mexican food. The chimichurri, we actually made it into a chimichurri pesto instead. So
Yeah, but I'm not free pesto.
for you.
Thank you. I took a bite and it's insanely good. It's so creamy. Oh, that was really
That's
special.
the protein and cheese. So
Oh my gosh, that's a cheating.
wow.
I'm not gonna lie. I think the people listening in, I think they're gonna hear really hungry. If they don't live in Columbus, they're making a trip.
Sure.
So, as we continue on here, let's talk a little bit more about the pancake balls. So, I don't know if I've ever seen a pancake ball until Catalina's, and you have had them trademarked. So, what was it like to develop them? Why pancake ball? And you sold over 1 million of them now.
3 million.
3 million?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that was a feat.
So back in the day, again, showing my age, I used to keep a folder of magazine scraps, a file folder, and I've lived in Seattle, and there's a huge Swedish population there, and so they had Ebbelsfevers, which is very similar to pancake balls. And I had that scrap of paper in my file folder. If I ever opened a restaurant, I was going to do a southern version of Nebelskieber, which is basically a Johnny cake. So it put corn flour in that. And that is how the pancake ball developed. I luckily pulled that piece of paper out. I think all my family has always made fun of me for having these huge file folders, but that file folder really, initiated this proprietary item for me. So I launched it on the very first day I opened, and it was immediately popular. But the funny thing is, I was like, what do I call these? I knew I wanted to make a southern version of an Nebelskieber, and I literally sat there and went, pancake, rounds, pancake, and I was a copywriter before this. And finally I said, pancake balls. I mean, it's so obvious now, but it really took me a while to come up with it.
It's sweet too, and you've eventually built up the different fillings. Did you have the different fillings at the beginning, or was it purely, say, a pancake ball and you dipped it into your maple syrup?
The fillings were there from the beginning, just like an Nebelskieber, but some of you might remember, especially I'm looking right at this table, when I would have specials every day, different flavors and different fillings. That is not feasible anymore, but I tried all different fillings in the beginning. These ended up being not only the most popular, but these 3 fillings are truly based on my travels and food history. So
I think that's so cool. And we're getting a really exclusive flavor as the dessert tonight.
we are, and we're also getting an exclusive size. I will tease that out a little bit.
Exclusive for me too. This is great news. So you mentioned you opened first Catalina's. You've got something so new in 2010, and Harrison West was coming out in droves. And as much as I love when we look at someone who's seen success, we talk about all the great moments, what's also really good is to talk about the hard times as well, because it's not all picture perfect. And you're my fellow Virgo. I know that you want to be perfect at the times, but we can't control that. So tell us, especially in those early days, for folks who maybe want to start a business of their own or who are just interested in what it's like to open a restaurant, what were some of those challenges for you specifically?
I will say that I've never been afraid of hard work. I've always worked very long hours and been very motivated. Whatever I set my mind to, I end up doing. If you want to open a restaurant, I would say think about the hardest you're ever going to work and double it, because it is truly, you have no idea in those early days how much work you're going to be putting in. And also be prepared for the financial hurdles you will face. After year one, I had to go back to a full-time job, so I was working a full-time job in a high-stress environment and then going in at night and prepping till about 4 in the morning. I look back on that time and I don't know how I did it, but I'll tell you how I did it. This is the biggest challenge I did face, was I got very sick. I got what is called sarcoidosis, and it is maybe an autoimmune disease. They don't know for sure what it is, but I got extremely ill. I'm completely in remission, and I've been fine now for over a decade, but thank you. But we all know now, and I don't think I realized it back then, stress and lack of sleep will really put your immune system in a precarious position, and there is nothing as bad as having a debilitating illness. So the second advice I would give to aspiring entrepreneurs out there is pick a great partner and pick great friends. My partner, I could not have done it without him during that time. I'm also looking at a friend right here in the audience, could not have done it without him. Lean on people that you can lean on, because you can't do it all on your own. And that is the other thing that I think I am good about compared to a lot of, perfectionist Virgos like us, like we are. I'm good at delegating. A lot of entrepreneurs start out and they want to do it all themselves.
Oh, yeah. It's your baby.
Yeah, especially if you're a perfectionist. Yeah. Yes, but you have to delegate and you have to rely on the people. I'm thinking also back to 2 managers I had back then that I literally lucked into because I wasn't as good at recruiting back then, but those 2 managers also added so much to the business, especially when I was unable to run it for a while.
I love it. And they're the people that are really going to push your mission forward. They're going to take, again, your baby, the thing that you're so excited about, And again, my sweetheart has told me a phrase in the past because he's very involved with founders on a day-to-day basis, which is missionary versus mercenaries. And so you want the missionaries, the people who are like, yeah, it's going to be really tough for a while, and we're probably going to work really long hours. As long as you treat your people correctly, then those are the folks that are going to stick around versus, this is a job. I can go get another job.
Exactly.
So that's always tough too, is figuring out who goes first, essentially. I don't like to use the word family about business because we need to keep that separate.
Exactly.
But you are so close at that stage that it's so important that you understand each other and exactly what you're there to do.
Yes, and it was also very different going from a corporate position at a high level where I was paid very well, and surrounded by people with masters or, bachelor's degrees from very good universities, to a very small business where people were not paid as well. So it's very difficult to go from, one environment to the other and still motivate people and understand that there are different challenges that come with a different kind of staff, and those people are the backbone of any restaurant.
They're the backbone of America, for sure. I mean, yes. Thank you. We might go with that. Because they are, and we all need to be very protective of them, so I won't go down the rabbit hole. But it's two types of hard, and
Exactly.
I'm glad that you're able to share. You've seen both sides. So, everyone, we're really excited for course number 4. I'll come out here in a moment.
Sarah, have you practiced saying weight coaching?
I'm now practicing weight coaching. And yes, I promise I can pronounce it. We are about to get into course number 4, everyone, and I'm not kidding. Victor in the kitchen, I heard him talking about these tamales, who he is one behind these, and he was like, "You're correct." So we hope you agree. Just to remind y'all, these are a hueco macoche tamale with persimmon pico de gallo. So again, we're talking very seasonal. Hueco macoche again is almost like, it's very related to corn. It's almost like a fungus. It's a little bit like mushroom. But again, it's not corn, but you are eating something really special and organic. That's the main half of it. Very common in Mexican cuisine. So
It's also called a corn truffle.
yes, the corn truffle. And Kathleen and I have basically done a little bit on social media so that we could inform folks how to say hueco macoche.
And to be honest, I've had it over the years, and I couldn't pronounce it at first. So you were the one who could pronounce it. But
That is sweet, but I took a call. Don't worry.
that's great.
Now, I do want to talk about a really special moment. I mean, you grew from Harrison West to Clintonville, now to Bethlehem a year ago. Just a few years ago, you teamed up with Ohio's own Guy Fieri, and you were on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and that is so special. How did you get the call? Did you submit yourself? What was the process like? And tell us about the whole moment that you had together and really what it did for the business.
Sure. So it's funny, from the early days, I would go online and see people recommending Catalinas to DDD, or Triple D as they call it. And I'd be like, why aren't they coming here? Why aren't they coming here? And finally, Shelby, who's back in the kitchen right now, she got an email and they finally asked us. And of course we were thrilled. I will say, coming out of that, first of all, Guy is hilarious, and just like you would fix for him. But it was so interesting. A lot of you guys will relate. After DDD, I got so many emails from friends and customers saying, wow, I had no idea how much work went into this. And I'm thinking, that was the magic of television. That made it look so easy.
Right. Seriously. So it wasn't an entire day of filming, what did you really have to go into?
It was very similar. It was 2 full days of shooting.
Wow.
But a lot of preparation. But yeah, it all turned out, and I was really happy with the segment, and yeah. So how do you like the weight macoche balling?
I can't stop eating now. I mean, this is incredible. Victor, it's perfect. We'll let Victor come out and say it. It's truly like, the texture is insane. And this salsa is really special.
Yes, it is persimmon salsa, and Another good story from my childhood. We used to, I don't know if you guys have persimmons here in Ohio, but we used to throw them at each other as children. But they were really small. They're much more earthy. And then again, when I met my husband in Turkey, they eat these big persimmons, just like an apple. They literally just bite into them. Now this one's a little underripe, so they should be for the salsa.
I mean, this is really, really delicious.
Okay.
So, again, you're 15 years later here. What was really...
Oh, Victor!
Yeah. Insane.
Thanks so much.
So good. Yay, thanks, Victor.
Are you welcome? I'm glad you like it.
Thank you. I know, I was like, tell us last week. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about 15 years of business, specifically here in Columbus. What have you been really doing to feel like you're keeping things fresh? What made your decision to start the expansion, and what have you been doing to say, how can I still stay on top of people's minds and really show what everything you have that's new, but also hold on to what's been so special about Katalina over the years?
Well, Sarah, I would say one of the things I do to stay relevant is be on podcast with you.
I like it. Thank you. That's very cute. Thanks for listening out there. Thank you.
But I would say I was so fortunate from the beginning. Columbus embraced us from the start. Some of you may remember 4 blocks lines down the street. But it is much more difficult to open a restaurant as an independent, self-funded owner. So it took me a long time to get to Catalina's in Clintonville, and then I opened literally less than a year before the pandemic. But ironically, that location really took off. And not to get in the weeds too much here, but everyone really wanted a third location, and Bexley was very vocal about it, as what were a few other areas. But this time in the restaurant industry is as difficult or more difficult than COVID.
Yes.
So this location has been a little more slow going. And I learned more from COVID, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs will say this, you learn more from the hard times than the good times. And so kind of buckling down again and trying to understand our next steps here.
Yeah, and I think, again, Paula, who was joined on the podcast, you, in addition to the well over 35 other people I've talked to this year, that is a common theme that we talk about, which is 2025 kind of feels a little like 2020 sometimes, but just for different reasons.
Yeah.
So what are you also doing with the team and for your team so that you can essentially keep putting your arms on and keep moving forward when there are things that are really scary out there right now? And then from a business perspective, again, you have rising costs when it comes to ingredients.
And labor, yes. Yes, it's tougher than ever for many reasons. You know, delivery saved us during COVID, but now those fees are really eating into our bottom line. Profitability is harder than ever. Everyone's grocery prices are going up, but food costs as a restaurant are even percentage-wise higher. Labor is harder than ever because people finally are getting paid what they deserve in the restaurant industry. Yes. And I will say that no one is making
adjusting.
Yes. Yeah. No one's making it easy on us out there except for our customers. But as I spoke about when I was growing up in the 80s, and I know all my friends were like this, it was a luxury to go to Pizza Hut. I mean, my parents were so frugal when it came to fine dining, and that's again why it was so revolutionary when I went to France, and people ate out daily there. And I think as a society, we need to decide, are restaurants and gathering places that important to us? Because if we don't support them and realize that food is not just a luxury, and eating out and dining, especially in the age of smartphones, are not a luxury. They are integral to our culture, and that's a whole other episode to talk about how we can actually do that. But I am literally pleading with my customers for the first time ever. If small restaurants are important to you, you need to consider them a non-luxury. You need to go to restaurants in person, not delivery, not to go, you need to go to restaurants. For your mental health as well, restaurants are one of the last places you can go and have people around you and not have a fight about politics. Just enjoy food and the cultural moment and the interaction and the social aspect of it.
Yeah. And so, thank you. Thank you to everyone coming here today, because that shows that you also really believe in supporting local. So
Yes,
we can't wait for you to enjoy course number 5 coming up. I hope you've been loving it so far. Course 5 already? Guys, this is moving fast. I hope you're enjoying everything so far.
We're really excited about this one.
So, course number 5. We have a honey curry chicken stew over a lotte potato puree, yum, oh my gosh, topped with quail egg, which I picked up at the grocery store yesterday, and chili ash. This is so special. Kathleen, can you talk about the inspiration behind this? Because I don't know if I've ever seen all this together.
Well, I know you like to talk about the perfect fight. I'm a very seasonal eater, and I just love me a stew in the winter or a braise. And so I would normally put the silver corn grits, you know, the Southern inspiration, but I wanted to do a potato instead. So my staff loves my elote mashed potatoes. I wanted to do the potatoes since we already had the masa and the tamale. But when I was in France, I loved to learn the history of food. And people always think that fine dining and the aristocrats were eating the best, but most of the foods we all love are peasant food. And if you think about stews, they are the classic peasant food. And so everyone has this picture of what you would eat in France, but they would make stews all the time and put an egg over it. And again, as someone who hadn't traveled much when I lived in France, it just blew me away, that yolk. You know, break open that yolk with a stew. It's creamy and it's the perfect Katalina food too, by the way. And yeah, so I will have a stew in the winter almost every night. I usually put a dollop of creme fraiche in it if I don't have the egg. But yeah, that's where it comes from. It's also a little southern too. In the South, we eat a lot of stews. I grew up on chicken and dumplings, so yeah, that's it.
This is so special.
Good, I'm glad
you
you
know,
liked it.
every single dish has been killer so far. But this is really special. I don't know how else to put it. Again, like you said, it's creamy. It's got a little kick on the back of your throat for that stew, which is awesome. And again, a lotte potato puree. We're in the Midwest. You got potato, you're all extremely happy. So you can't go wrong.
I also love the Tasma honey. You know,
Yes.
if you think about it, like a lot of Asian dishes, they put coconut sugar or sugar in their curries. And even Italians put sugar in any kind of ragu, and it just cuts that tartness perfectly. So thank you. I'm glad you like it.
I gotta stop eating so I can ask you questions. We are sadly getting to the last few questions of our episode here tonight. And in addition to the entire menu you and the team have put together tonight, I think we'd love to hear, you know, you've gone through some hard times, you've pushed through challenges, but I think it's also really important that we celebrate your wins. So tell us, what are some of the things you're most proud of?
Well, I am definitely proud of lasting 15 years. I think I had it a little easy in the beginning after the recession. It was, like I said before, it was a lot easier to be profitable and get customers in the door before the pandemic and delivery apps and everyone glued to their iPhones. But the wins are being here literally 15 years. For a restaurant, that is a very long time. I don't know what the future brings, but my team has been with me off and on, and it's very lonely being an entrepreneur sometimes because you always have to be the bad guy to your staff. Sometimes you don't get a birthday card. It's hard to commiserate with your friends if they're not entrepreneurs. But I, for example, had an employee who was with me in the early days and who I actually had to let go for the right reasons. But he said to me that one time he was in the hospital and I sent him flowers, and that is like a pivotal moment in his life because no boss had ever done that to him before. So it's those little things like that. You might think I'm most proud of the big things, the big wins, selling 3 million pancake balls, but it's literally those employees who come up to you after years and say things like, that was so special to me. So I'm almost tearing up thinking about it. You know, I think everyone should tell that employee or that boss in their life if they do mean a lot to you, and understand that, yeah, it's hard running a business and you can be abrasive sometimes when you need to get things done. But I hope in the end, my employees and even the community remembers me as doing the right thing and embracing those employees and appreciating those employees and those customers. It's all about people and connections in the end, isn't it?
100%. Yeah. You're right. I mean, there are at least more than a handful of entrepreneurs here in the room. And I hope that that really resonated with them, which is, it certainly did with me, which is, I tried to start at about 25, 26 years old. And do you think that I knew how to manage people? No. I should be their best friend. And then it was extremely difficult then to have hard conversations or be like, this business is going under. You all have to come home now. Like, I would almost physically throw up sometimes at these conversations. So it takes a lot of practice too, and that's where it's so exciting when you start things young. But I think we also should celebrate a lot of the people who start something a little bit late in life. I mean, maturity and experience really lends to that, and I'm sure everyone here today can say that they're excited about you being their leader. But what are you doing outside of work? Because every time I talk to you, you do have such a great attitude. Like, you seem like you're keeping it together. What are you doing for your own mental health so that you can keep going and that you recognize this is the marathon? So what are some of your special tips and tricks?
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm sure some people would not say that I'm always so positive or whatever you just said, but I have really learned the hard way that I have to work with my own style, just like I have to work with my own employees' style. I genuinely love working. I'm very fortunate to love what I do, and I love working hard. So I don't mind working 7 days a week or till midnight sometimes, but I also give myself very, luxurious breaks, so to speak. I just went on a leadership retreat, and I used to feel guilty every time I left the cafe, but I know it makes me a better leader. It makes me more calm. And if I have that carrot on a stick that I call it, I can work extra hard that week or so beforehand because I know I'm going to treat myself right. And it's not an indulgence to me, it's a necessity. And I used to not take vacations. I used to not give myself those breaks, but I am fortunate enough to have a great team where I can actually leave the cafe, go out of town, indulge myself, and sure, I'm working when I'm out of town. I'm answering emails or I'm answering texts or doing what I have to do, but those little luxuries are so important to me.
Yeah, and getting outside, treating your body well. Are you someone who loves like a good reality TV, like Trash Mom? Do you ever go home, like, are you on Bravo when you get home?
I do not like reality shows. I will say I'm probably the same with TV as I am with food. I'm kind of highbrow when it comes to TV, Sarah. I'm sorry.
Good for you. I'm a person who can take Little Caesars and caviar, so that means that I enjoy something intellectual and Oscar winning, and then I also enjoy ladies screaming at each other.
I love it.
But now I have it all, right?
Exactly.
Well, everyone, please enjoy the rest of this course. I believe next you are going to have a very small palate cleanser. It's a golden berry palate cleanser. And then, oh my gosh, we are getting to our last few questions as well as dessert. Losing steam as I drink the sangria here. I hope you all enjoy your palate cleanser. That was so refreshing. How did you come up with the golden berry?
Can I say my Turkish husband again? He's golden berries all the time.
He's amused, And I hope that you can watch this and be like, look at what I did today. Oh, I'm sure. So we are plating the pancake balls right now. Can't wait for you all to try these, and we'll describe what those are as they come out here. But in the meantime, we're going to wrap up with our last few questions, which makes me really sad. I hate this part.
We'll do it again.
Yeah. So, I know you mentioned a few little pieces at Jen's earlier, but I always like to ask, what is one piece of advice that you would give to anyone who is interested in being an entrepreneur or founder of any kind, whether it's in food or whether it's in any other industry?
I touched on these earlier. I would say be prepared to work harder than you've ever worked. Anticipate that it's going to cost a lot more than you think it's going to cost.
Yeah.
But also rely on friends and family and great employees. Delegate, delegate, delegate. Do not be afraid, and I don't think any founder would be, to hire people who are better than you at your weak areas, for sure.
I love that. It's always nice to have like people smarter than you in the room.
Exactly.
It's that phrase, you know? Because then who are you working with?
Right. I think that to go back to when I did get sick, I was kind of forced early on because of that to delegate and allocate and outsource more than I probably was prepared for financially, but it was a blessing in disguise because I had those experts that I normally would have hesitated to hire, probably.
Right. And what do you want for the future? How do you want to grow?
Before this unsteady economic time, my goal was to get to 10 locations. I still love that.
You can do it.
Another piece of advice I would give people is I actually talked to a billionaire restaurant owner at one point, and he confirmed what I have always thought, you know, if you can do it on your own and remain independent, even if you have so-called silent investors, they're going to have you sacrifice on food costs, labor costs in ways that you don't necessarily want to. And that's not always a good thing. The bottom line is having more profit is sometimes, not always a good thing, because then you cut back on the things that make you who you are, make you special.
Right. And it compromises who you are at the end of the day. And it's hard when you're like, I want to focus on growth, and other people's money could really help with that. But then become the boss. They're your boss. I mean, you're answering to them so that they can make 5x, 10x from what they gave you.
Sure. And growth is not always a good thing, for sure.
Yeah. What was you say is the difference then? Is it grow when you're ready, or is it, that it's growing to make sure you're not doing it at a cost?
Grow when you're ready and do it slow and steady. I'm glad that whether it was intentional or not, I did grow very slowly.
Oh gosh. Now, I know the Pancake Balls are coming. We are going to get to the world's best and hardest question, as we like to say in this podcast, while you enjoy your final dish of the evening, and we'll also do a thank you for the crew as they're finishing up here as well. A little reminder for everyone. This is called the perfect bite because it's not only a perfect bite of the value chain of the food and beverage industry and all the folks who are building amazing businesses behind it, but it's because we all have our own perfect bites. So if you've never listened in, I came up with this concept in January 2025 when I was frankly feeling a little lost myself about how I wanted to get out into the world and connect with others. I knew that helping spread other people's stories in this space was something that I felt really passionate about. And the phrase perfect bite just kept coming up in my head, and it's because I think we all have our own unique taste buds, those special memories, a recipe that you had, just something that you can't get out of your head that makes you smile every time you think about it. So, Kathleen, what is your perfect bite?
Can I have two answers?
They
have to be seasonal. They have to be seasonal. Okay, I can choose one.
Just try your best to combine.
Well, my perfect bite, I call my desert island meal. Like, if there's only one thing I could eat, for the rest of my life, because everyone gets sick of something. But my perfect bite is a combination of flavors and cultures, like any great food, any great dish. People may think certain dishes are uniquely one culture's dish, but if you look into the history of food, they're always a combination of flavors and influences from outside. But the best dishes are also using what you have to do, necessity is always the mother of invention. So I think that's a lot of times how the best dishes come about. So after that long-winded, I say I really love pho because it is the perfect combination of two cultures. And yes, it is the result of colonialism because you have the French influence on Vietnamese and Asian cultures with that perfect stock. I mean, you could not have a stock like that if you did not have those two cultures meet together. You have the French perfect technique with the Asian influence of the spices, and then you have just the fresh herbs in this amazing, cold weather soup. And I literally eat fresh herbs on everything. But who would have thought, other than the person who came up with it, to put basil, mint, jalapeno,
Carrots.
beef broth, everything, that it just makes the perfect dish to me. It smells great, it tastes great, it leaves you filled but not too filled. That's my perfect bite.
And my favorite thing also about sometimes dissecting these answers is they tend to be really reflective of the person. So we came here tonight to have Latin slanted Southern food, and then your perfect bite is also something warm, cozy, and celebrates. Yes, you said not celebrating that part. However, the coming together of community, globalism that we see in food that's really special. So now we're going to see that in our dessert here tonight as well. The famous pancake balls have appeared. They are maple and apple. There is some pecan in there as well, with ice cream. And so, as you all finish up here, we're going to have Kathleen mention just where you can find her and how you will continue to support the wrap up the episode here.
If I could just segue really quickly, also I want to thank all the sponsors. This dish is also a perfect example of this local sourcing. It's got Milligan's maple syrup. It's got apples that are local from Premier Produce. I also brought back some apples, literally picked off the tree in California from one of my friends. Then it also is the Southern-slanted, a baked apple, candied pecans filling. And if you haven't noticed, these pancake balls are a different size. So I'll leave it at that. And then the ice, right? They're smaller. Yes. And then the ice cream has my favorite. If I had to choose a favorite ingredient, it would be creme fraiche in that ice cream. And then also vanilla beans. So enjoy. And I would recommend spooning that ice cream on top of the pancake balls if you'd like.
Gorgeous. I have a nut-free version, so that is why I'm taking a moment. I can't wait to dive in here.
And while you're taking a bite into that pancake ball, Sarah, I have a t-shirt for you here.
Hello, everyone. This is how we can find me. No problem.
But you asked how to find me. I'm at Katalina Day on Instagram. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and my social media manager's here tonight, and she will answer DMs. But yeah, reach out anytime, and just I want to thank you, Sarah. This was so lovely
So special.
I'm
Thank
so
you
glad
for
we
tuning in.
connected. Of course,
Oh my gosh. Are we at a good time to welcome the staff, right?
I think so. Yeah, bring on the staff out. Here we go, guys.
Team Katalina.
Katalina in through.
Everybody was incredible. You all did such an amazing job. Thank you for doing something totally new and special. And I'm hoping that these are two perfect bites, folks. So remember, let's take a poll as we wrap things up here. We're going to ask all of you, just raise your hand. I'll say each course, and you can raise your hand if that was your perfect bite. We'd like to thank Middle West Spirits, in addition to our other sponsors here tonight, as well as our beneficiaries, Freedom a la carte. You can go to freedomalacarte.org to learn more, as well as middlewestspirits.com. And I just want to thank everyone in this room tonight. This is a dream come true. We're excited to keep doing more of these. please reach out to me if there is anything you liked, anything you do differently next time, because we're here to learn. We're here to come together over food.
Can I call it one more sponsor really quickly? Yeah. The flowers are from Rose Bridal.
Yeah.
One favorite florist. Very small business. Beautiful flowers. So.
All right. Well, everyone, please enjoy the rest of your dessert here and your evening. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. This was Kathleen at Catalina Days. Perfect Bite.
Thanks for tuning in to The Perfect Bite today. You can listen to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Thanks in advance for subscribing, rating, and reviewing. You can follow The Perfect Bite on social media @PerfectBitePod. Now go get something good to eat.